What a beautiful note to start on. This lovely podcast.
Oh, is that what we're
Noah
saying? I didn't know if you were ready yet.
No, I don't know if I am either, but it happens.
You're like, hey, that's a good spot. Joey looks like a terrible person.
Right, he looks uncomfortable.
Oh boy, here we go.
Keep him on his toes. This show is Noah Asked, and I am Noah, and I am joined here, as always, by
Joey, the Joey. I'm the Joey on social media. Look me up, bro.
Heck yeah, they know that by now.
No, it's for the new viewers. No, you got to tell the audience who we are.
I see.
That's why we say our names and the name of the show.
I got it. I got it.
Tell people stuff.
Today, the episode is about decisions. Sometimes it sucks. Some people are good at it. Some people are bad at it. And that's kind of what I want to focus on, is the people who are bad at making decisions.
Like you.
Like me.
You made the decision of being on podcasts with me. That's pretty no good.
Yeah, no, it's the worst thing that this ever happened to me. And I regret it every second of my life.
Yeah. I gave you work. I figured I taught you how to edit so that it was no longer an easy process for you.
Yeah, I used to just show up and like leave, and I was like, well, nah, I am in a room with Joey for the next hour, but other than that, it's fine.
Yeah, you're like almost not worth it, but the fact that people are listening to me, all right, I'll allow it. But then I'm like, hey, Noah, you know how I'm like doing 2 podcasts a week? You should do one and edit it. And you're just like, I don't know, I have my computer. I don't know if I can do it.
I have a pretty good thing going as it is.
Yeah, I don't know if I can find time in my schedule. I've got another nap coming up.
I know. Minecraft, is that you? Are you calling my name?
No, I just been learning low in space and time for you.
Yeah, no, I like to cook meals, so like I was gonna do that, but now I'm just gonna eat a sandwich. Like, what am I? I'm animal. So
God. But decisions. Tell me more about it.
One of my biggest pet peeves is when someone like can't make a decision on various things that aren't important. So I'm like, you know what? Like, let's just roast them and burn them to the ground is what I'm trying to do right now.
Ooh, no, number 1 roasts. Give me one. Throw it out.
Man, you can't make a decision. Why don't you just go to Indecision Town?
Ha. Got him.
They're not gonna recover. That's all we need. That's all
getting
we need,
edited
folks.
out. You're like right now thinking like, okay, I have to say something next that I can just like cut straight to.
Yeah, some people aren't great at decision making, and it does kind of bother me.
It bothers me too because like I feel as though I always give an easy out in most of the scenarios. Like I've developed this amazing system, right, where I've taken out most of the decision from the hard things in life, like choosing where to eat. So what I do is I say, pick a cuisine, pick something, pick Greek, Asian fusion, Japanese, Mexican, whatever, and I will choose the place. Or we do a thing where it's like, where do you want to eat? And I say, give me 3 options. And then they choose 3. And I always pick the first one because the first one's the one that they want to go to. So that is my like flawless plan. I did see another one the other day though. And it was like when someone can't figure out where they want to eat or when someone wants you to choose, just be like, all right, well, guess where I'm taking you. And then their first guess, you say yes. And then that's how you do it. And I was like, that's kind of interesting. It might work, but I like mine of like just narrowing choice because some people are really bad with it's just too many options. I feel like I don't struggle with that too much. Usually I'm like, all right, yeah, I'll just do this.
For sure. I feel like that second thing would work a lot better on like almost like bigger dates where it's like, ooh, they're excited. They know that you're like wanting something good to happen. Yeah. Whereas just on like any other day, they'd be like, I don't know, McDonald's. I'm
like, yes, we're going to McDonald's.
You got it.
Like, oh, fuck, man. We've been to McDonald's like 14 times this week. Because your problem's like, well, you keep choosing it. I'm like, what do you mean? You chose it. I mean, yeah, I did. I chose it. Yep, it was me, 100%. You're such a good guesser. You're so good.
I kind of want to clarify at the beginning that I don't like bad decision makers. But that doesn't always mean a good versus a bad decision. Sometimes it's just indecision. Gotcha. Is the bad decision maker. And so I kind of want to talk about a little bit about that. If you know anything about good decisions versus bad decisions and what you know about indecision?
I have made a few bad decisions in my life, so I would say I'm kind of an expert doing that. But I have like done a little bit of research on just like the best decision making processes. There's quite a few options out there. I don't know if you saw very many out there, but I narrowed it down to two that I thought were super interesting. I don't know if you want to get into that now, if you want to go into that later, or if you have anything planned.
We can move into something next. We'll start on like how this happens, what people do in life, and then we'll move into like maybe things that we can use to help this and things like that. Put a pin in that, and I guess we'll talk a little bit about the paradox of choice.
Okay.
Do you know anything about this?
Don't. Tell me about it. Educate me, sir.
The paradox of choice is the idea that the more options you have, the harder it is to choose something. And people can have a little panic attack when they have 50 different types of tea that they want when their mom just said go get tea from the store, and they're like, I don't know which one's the right decision.
Too many. This is kind of going off of my theory of just like narrow it down to a few and then it's easier.
Yeah, of course. You'd think like the more choices you have the more option to get the perfect thing for you. But people tend to be less happy with their decision after having more options. Obviously, I made the best with what I had because I didn't have much. Whereas if you have a lot, you're like, well, this was the best for this choice, but like maybe I would have wanted a little more of this from it, and that would have provided that for me. And so the fact that you have more options that could have been good make you less satisfied in the end.
Yeah, didn't we talk about this a little bit with like when we talked about dating at one point? We talked about like Tinder and how having such a wide variety of options for things actually made people less happy in dating, right?
I wanted to go a little more in depth and like give a name to that
Yeah,
concept.
no, that's really interesting.
I kind of wondered where these people came from because obviously like the paradox of choice exists, and we all get a little apprehensive when a lot of choices are thrown our way because we like kind of want to narrow it down, and we do want a little bit of the best anyways, or at least a good option. And people who struggle making decisions even with just a couple things or a very like small minute decision, I was kind of wondering where they came from. I guess the first place to start is, do you think it's a nurture thing or a nature thing?
So in my opinion, I would say it's a nurture thing. When you're brought up, you're probably given a bunch of choices, and as you get older, you are taught to quickly deduce what you want, that kind of stuff. But I don't know, I suppose it could go either way.
I would say personally, for me, it's a nurture thing because when I was a kid, I was terrible at making decisions.
Yeah.
And to this day, my grandma will like whip out her cane. She doesn't use a cane, but she has one for beating me.
Oh, God.
She'll whip out her cane and say, Noah, if you don't pick the restaurant in the next like 3 seconds. Like,
Oh, God, Noah, you're the bad decision maker.
I was. But then my grandma would like yell at me for the next 6 years, even when I would make a decision on the spot, being like, if you don't make a decision. And so I do think it's something that as a young person, maybe I was afraid to disappoint someone, pick the wrong thing. And even when you like truly don't care, you can like come up with a preference. So as a kid, I think I just like would say, I don't know. Nowadays, I'm like, okay, I'll figure it out. I'll make the decision.
Yeah, you were like negatively conditioned into making your decisions faster for fear of getting reprimanded. That's interesting. Yeah, I think a lot of us undergo the same kind of stuff because as a kid, very rarely I think we are asked, what do you want, you know? Basically, most of your life up to college is telling you what you know. Then after you get to college, a lot of it is what do you want to do with that knowledge? And a lot of people aren't prepared for that switch. I talked to someone just yesterday where they are a sophomore, I believe. And I was like, so what do you like? What do you want to do? And they're like, I don't know. It's like, what do you mean you don't know what you like? They're like, I don't know. I've just been working on those things I've been told to work on for my entire life. And then I just ended up here.
Yeah, and then you get to college and you're like, finally I have some choice. And they're like, well, actually you have about 2 years of gen eds that you can use to get out of the way. So
unless you're Joey, in which case you're like, let me just have the good stuff. And then you're suddenly a junior/senior in college and you're still taking gen eds.
nice.
Yeah. Suddenly your professor is like, how many of you were born in 2001? And half the class raises their hand and you're like, am I in the right place?
Oh no.
What's going on? Do you guys know? Like, do you know what happened that year that was special? Like, no, it wasn't you. I'm telling you right now.
I promise.
Like, but it's crazy to me, but with that kind of stuff. So yeah, I think somewhere along the line, some of those people just maybe didn't get taught or didn't get asked enough what they liked. And I think maybe somewhere along the line, you and I had that extra push, where it was your grandmother, or it was just my mom leaning on me to be more creative and just push towards things I want and question the things I like. And now as an adult, I feel at least adept at making decisions.
For sure. I actually saw a little quote, which I think someone would probably be able to relate to, which is, raised by overly controlling parents who valued obedience, compliance, and passivity rather than independence, autonomy, and assertiveness. So if you were raised under like an iron fist, then it is safe to conclude that for the rest of your life, you're going to assume that you're going to let the other people make decisions, or else you're going to get in trouble. You're just trying to make everyone else happy, not yourself. So maybe if you don't have a whole lot of self-worth, then you don't value what you choose. You just hope that you can choose what the other person wants.
Okay. Yeah, that would make a lot of sense, wouldn't it? Yeah. So do you feel like you were raised under a authoritarian parenting, or do you feel like you were more, I don't know what the opposite of authoritarian parenting is?
I don't think I was raised under like an authoritarian household.
I thought you were going to leave it at that. I don't think I was raised.
I don't think I was raised. Yeah, they just kind of let me. Yeah, I don't think I was raised under an authoritarian household. I probably acted like it sometimes in like middle school and high school, that I was like, oh, Mom, you always yell at me. And it's like, they don't yell. They just like change their tone of voice, which, I mean, you got to assign a word to that. Oh, Mom, you changed your tone of voice at me. Like,
oh, Mom, you always reprimand me, Mother. I cannot believe that you would scorn me with such words, Mother.
How dare you mildly berate me, Mother?
I cannot believe you would take these words towards me. I bite my thumb at you, Mama.
You reduce me, not to atoms, but to a slightly smaller version of myself.
You have taken my mental state into a decline, Mother.
Oh, no.
I cannot believe you would use such harsh words with me.
Please.
You know, as the 13-year-olds of the world speak.
Yeah, no, that's exactly how they sound in my head. So.
Yeah, that's how everyone sounds in my head. It's a nightmare.
Oh, I was about to say, you live a fun little life. No, please, I beg you. I think a little bit through logic, we've kind of concluded that it is a nurture thing.
It's more nurture.
Yeah, I couldn't find anything that was like, yeah, people are kind of born this way. So there it is, folks. The facts.
There it is. That's the end of the podcast. We figured it out.
We answered a question. Noah's been asking this whole time and never got an answer.
Whoa, well, you've gotten answers before. Surely. Right? Wait,
maybe.
Hold on. This is episode 20. How many answers have we had? We've had 4. 4 answers out of 20 episodes. I think we're doing pretty good. We're doing better than I don't know, though. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, they don't get a whole lot of answers there.
They get a lot of recommendation.
Just like I did when I was a kid.
Yeah. Speaking about like nature versus nature, like you said, no one is born like just making good decisions. Like the human brain's a weird thing anyways, in that a lot of the things that we grow up to do and learn about with the brain is just kind of guesswork. We're like, oh yeah, we were born with these basic skills because we can see them in most babies, but there's other things like you just can't see the mental process of a baby. You can kind of like deduce based on science with rats and stuff, but there's nothing that definitively says, oh yeah, this person was born to do this. Like Einstein was born to be good at arithmetic because of this thing and that thing. So yeah, a lot of it we just kind of have to assume comes from surrounding, and other bits of it we're just like, yeah, sure, it was there. I was researching here, looking at what happens to the brain biologically when we're making decisions. And I found about 5 or 6 different theories about what part of the brain deals with process of decision making.
But by theories, you mean they don't entirely know?
Yeah. And I think that's a lot of psychology and a lot of like the physiology of the brain, just because it is such a weird organ. Like you can't look at it and just like, there's increased activity in these areas, and we can tell that, but from that we can only deduce so much. And what I mean by that is most people would think of from biology is that the frontal lobe handles most of our decision making, right? Well, do you know what else the frontal lobe is thought to be used for?
Nothing. That's it.
Nothing
Just
at all.
Decision
That's
making.
it. Let me read you off, because that's what I thought. And so I was like, whoa, what does the frontal lobe do? Just to have it here. So it covers consciousness, problem solving, memory, spontaneity, language, initiative, judgment, language, impulse control, social and sexual behavior, motor functions, and more! Exclamation point.
Beautiful.
That is what I found on the internet about what the frontal lobe does. They're like, yeah, it does everything. It does everything. Like humans have a bigger one, so that's the human part of the brain. And that's something that's been in like textbooks forever and all that. But I actually found a pretty cool study that was about decision making specifically, where they believe decisions happen in, I'm gonna butcher this, the striatum, and that is a part that is closer to the if you're looking at a brain, it's like in the middle towards the basal ganglia. Basically what they kind of deduced is that information is received and taken through the frontal cortex, and then residual information is almost shared to the basal ganglia, where it actually splits into 3 parts. So yeah, your brain handles it in ways that we don't even really understand, is kind of my point. We theorized this because we looked at rats and just gave them 2 options, one that gave them positive stimulus and one that gave them less positive stimulus while hooking up stuff, and they're like, oh, this thing happens, and it looks like it happens towards the middle of the brain instead of the front of the brain, like we've thought for the last 20 years. So our decision making could come from either we developed these things better as we grew, so our basal ganglia just is bigger and more profound or stronger than other people's because we were born that way with good genes to make it that way. Or you could look at it from the direction of, well, we were born with that thing, but as we grew, our parents reprimanded us a bunch, so we were forced to have those synapses that connected better.
For sure. And humans, they're like subject to what people call like the principle of least effort, which is the idea that in a lot of facets of lives that our body tries to do the simplest, most easiest thing, even if it's not the most advantageous to us. With that, as a child, we would have realized that our parents always made the decisions or something like that, or our parents like this and that, or our friends would always really want to do something and we didn't really care. So the principle of least effort said, hey, other people like to make decisions. You just don't have to, and just choose not to, and it seems to work out in life, so that's just what you're going to do. It could be an assumption that might have not necessarily been right, but your body made it for you to save energy. Yeah,
that makes sense. That's like the it's a quote unquote law. Where the simplest answer is always...
It's Occam's razors.
Yeah, there you go. Occam's razor, yeah, where the simplest answer is most likely the true one. I feel like I hear that a lot with like ghosts and stuff, where it's like, oh yeah, it's a ghost that's happening. Well, that's not the easiest answer. The easiest answer is, oh, there's a bunch of electrical fields in this area that are causing readings to be off for something, and so that's why those are there, rather than there being a spirit. That makes sense. It's that same principle just applied in our bodies.
So with these people who may have been raised to make decisions not quite as well, I was curious if you noticed that there are any traits that also appear with someone who may or may not be as good at making decisions.
They're dumb. Not necessarily that they're dumb. It's just a lot of these people to me seem more prone to anxiety, like generalized anxiety disorder, or more prone to those kinds of things where they let little things stress them out a bunch. And that's just something I've noticed. I don't know if it's an actual correlation. I've seen it in quite a few of the people that anytime they're given the slightest bit of control over their own life, they kind of freak out.
Yeah, that was exactly kind of what I was looking for, was something like that. And that was one of the few that I had realized too. The other one I kind of mentioned earlier was maybe having like low self-worth, a lower self-esteem.
Yeah.
Which would also correlate with the anxiety and just not valuing your own opinion and maybe valuing others higher than your own.
Yeah. I don't know. Stop it, guys. I guess what we're saying is value yourself more. Love yourself. Love yourself.
Be
and
strong.
You will make better No, well, I mean, that's not.
You'll make decisions easier.
If you value yourself more, your decisions will have more worth. So maybe you'll put more thought into them and not stress out about it because it's what you want.
Or maybe you'll put less thought into them and you'll just do what you want right away. Which I think is kind of the big key. That actually leads in nicely to a very specific topic I found, which is called paralysis by analysis. And
sounds like a rapper in the 90s.
Yes. And he is about to hit you with this laminar flow. And
science.
He blinded me with analysis. So paralysis by analysis is the state of overanalyzing or overthinking a situation so that a decision or action is never taken. That seems about like what we're talking about. Someone who just struggles making a decision because they have too many options or they're worried about like choosing the wrong thing.
Yeah.
And I really wanted a word for this, and upon our research, it took a while for me to stumble across it, but I think this concept proves perfectly kind of like what these people are going through. And it's just this paralysis by overthinking. But I found some of the effects of it and some of the ways to possibly overcome it.
Ooh, that's even better.
Hey.
If you have this sweet rapper syndrome, then you should listen to these words that my boy Noah's about to lay down right here. I was going to start freestyling. I decided it was a bad idea.
Yeah.
Anyways, we should do an educational rap, Noah.
I think it'd be fun.
Like,
I've always kind of wanted to like make a rap a little bit.
Yeah, not like right now, not a freestyle, but like we should write one and then put it out.
Yeah.
Just like, yo, Noah in the place to be. He's gonna teach you about geography.
Hey, let's go to China. Let's not finish this bit because I'm gonna hate myself.
Add in some air horn .wobs.
I don't know how to edit that well.
Oh,
you know I do this?
I can send.
No,
okay.
I can figure it out. I can figure it out.
So what are some of the effects on how to overcome this paralysis analysis?
So some of the effects of this paralysis analysis. First of all, your decision making is holding you back a little bit. It's specifically hurting your performance on like mentally demanding tasks, because if you're just overloading on this like small decision step, then everything else you're trying to do is kind of getting bogged up a little bit. It's like on a computer how you have RAM, which is like what lets you run programs kind of like in the moment. Your overthinking is kind of taking up some of your RAM. Our brain has a thing very similar to RAM in that it's just like this in the moment kind of memory. And so your overthinking is taking up that space and it's not leaving room for you to make other cognitive decisions and things like that. There have been plenty of studies showing that when you're stressed or overloaded that you just struggle on these cognitive tests and stuff. And so this is just another facet for which that to happen.
Yeah.
But not only cognitive tests get hurt, but also like creatively, people struggle a lot. Being overloaded and being in the state of analysis paralysis caused creativity to diminish. Like with art students trying to figure out like exactly where they want to start and finish and stuff. And they're trying to like create this whole piece in their head.
Yeah, their
like,
queue just gets too full. Yeah. Have you experienced that ever?
I think I have a little bit.
Yeah.
I can't think of an exact moment. Probably because these tasks were pretty small and I tried to make them too big and then I just never did them. And so that's when that happened to me.
Yeah, I've felt it before when I'm like editing and I have a bunch of other stuff going on, which is funny because I always like my queue to be full. If you know me, then I'm always working on something. It's like a hobby or one of my side hobbies or one of those side hobbies to the side hobbies. I literally bring it on myself when it happens. And I think being aware that it's all my fault doesn't help with it. So it's like, oh, I've got this thing that I'm working on. Like, say it's something for Humorish. I've got to edit this thing and get it out, which happens quite frequently. Then also I've got this homework assignment, but then on top of that, I decided I was going to edit a short film for someone. And so all of these things are in my mind at one time, and I find that it's simply the act of thinking about all of them at once that usually stresses me out to the point where I'm just sitting there staring at my screen, not sure where the next step should land. And the way I usually find my way out of that kind of paralysis is just stopping and taking a step back, taking a deep breath, and then just choosing one, because it's a lot easier to focus on one thing than it is focus on 3 or 4 or
definitely
whatever.
And then you kind of have to have the resolve to choose that one. You have to choose which one's the most important, which ones to like let go of and things like that. And that can be very difficult for people, especially if they're in this paralysis state of trying to be like, well, I do need to get this homework done. I actually have to get this homework done for this other class, but I also really want to like get this project done for myself that I've been pushing off for months and months. It can cause a lot of problems. This last thing on this list is that overthinking can make you less happy.
I can understand that.
Yeah. They break it down in a little way where they talk about maximizers and satisfiers.
Okay.
And so a maximizer is a person who's trying to get like the most happiness, the most utility, the most efficient result out of something. And so they're the person who gets 100 choices and researches every single choice to get the exact one that they want. And while you might actually end up with the best result, you spent so much time, so much effort, so much energy that it wasn't worth it. And actually, maximizers reported significantly less life satisfaction, happiness, optimism, and self-esteem, and significantly more regret and depression than others. And so I guess the act of going through and choosing everything makes you realize all the options that you're possibly missing out on.
Yeah.
But also you just putting in all this extra effort on something that may or may not need it could also
Yeah, I could see how that would happen to like people who do that all the time for everything, like going through all the processes and then at the end finding out that Dove soap is the best soap that you could buy or something. It's like that you definitely spent, 4 hours researching the soaps and their effects and how they feel in the skin, and then you get to the end and you're like, oh, it is just soap.
Yeah, it kind of raises your expectations and stuff. Today I was lining up some homework that needs to be done, and I was like tabbing out like when it's due because it's just already in my book and stuff. So I was like, well, if I already have the pages, I might as well just tab out when there needs to be done, so that way I know like how far ahead I am and stuff. And I was like, what if we have like a snow day or something and it like throws all of this work off? I would be so upset. And so
there's a lot of people that do that though. They go through like the syllabus and mark down all things. And actually that was one of my goals for this year, is I was going to try and do that more. I haven't. But I don't know. I think about that too, though, where it's like, oh, well, what if we get a snow day? What if we do this thing? What if we do that thing? But I don't know. I think it's a little bit different with school because you might be upset if, that got pushed back and I didn't have to be stressed about it. I'd like to think that myself personally anyways, if that were to happen, I could at least relish in the fact that, oh, well, I have more free time now because I'm already done with this thing that was supposed to be done this week, but now it's due next week. So now I just have this week to work on things to get ahead even further or something, if you're one of those people. Because I like to have 2 weeks worth of work done if I can. That way, if something happens in my life, I can just be like, okay, it's cool. I still have like, a buffer of like, I'm not going to be behind or anything.
And then that way also, if you like want to stop and like creatively pursue something that's kind of in the moment, then you can also do that.
That's one of those skills I started working on when I was in middle school, like while I was homeschooled, but I did it really bad back then because what I would do is I would just do like an entire month's worth of assignments in an afternoon
and then just forget the class even existed.
Well, it's like not even that. I just like wouldn't do it. I would just like go through and do my online quizzes and just check random answers.
Oh, okay.
I'd just be like, how about I just don't do this so I can just continue making Minecraft videos. But now I've honed that to where it's like, all right, I've got to do them because now I'm actually paying for this, and I'm gonna get 2 or 3 weeks done, keep my A in the class for the next month, and work on Humorish stuff.
So if you find yourself falling into these little traps of like overthinking and maybe not being the happiest that you could be because you just like really want that perfect thing, a few ways that they say you can alleviate that is structure your day for the decisions that matter most. That seems like an easy one of like, okay, this one's the big one. If I'm going to put time into something, it might as well be this one, and the other ones I can just kind of trickle down at the end. Next, limit the amount of information you can consume. It's not looking for more choices than you already have because that's just going to stress you out.
Yeah.
I think that comes when like thinking about restaurants is like, oh, let me just Google them. And I'm like, well, then there's going to be a list of 1,000 restaurants in town that you could possibly go to. You should like either think of types of food or just like go off the ones in memory. Although I would say that sometimes I Google it and I see one and I'm like, oh, that's the one that I wasn't thinking about.
But I was like, Noah, if you're going from memory, how do you try new places? How do you figure out if you do like Thai food or Indian food or something else that's weird, like Greek food? How do you ever have a gyro or is it a hero? I don't know. How do I know how to pronounce it if I'm just going from memory? I don't know Greek places.
If I'm not going to this place, how am I supposed to say their food cuisine right?
I gotta go to this place and be like, all right, I'll have a gyro. And then they're like, it's a hero. I'm like, ugh. Tourists.
You're in my town.
Get out of here. Where do you think you are? This isn't Greek land. This is America where we speak American. Thank you kindly.
I will take my gyro, sir.
Yeah, I'll take my gyro as it is. You pile of crap. What do you got a minor in linguistics and you think you're cool? I know you're taking French and not Greek. Get out of here, you freaking hoser.
These Canadians.
Fucking get it. I swear to God, I'm just gonna keep mumbling.
Okay. If you're just trying to make a simple decision, then maybe you shouldn't be trying to find new options and like throwing that into your decision-making process if you're already struggling. So third on here, set a deadline and hold yourself accountable. That way on like bigger decisions that need a time span to actually be chosen and done right, say like a career path decision or a lifestyle change decision, if you just limit yourself to when this has to be done, then you're more likely to do it and just be happy with the results because that's what you did and that's what you decided. And I feel like that goes with a lot of things about setting a deadline. Will just help you do it whether you want to or not. And just kind of like make you satisfied even if it's not the optimal thing to do.
Now with that, would you say that it is better to have a short deadline or a long deadline?
Probably a relatively short one, but it also depends on what kind of decision you're making because you do want to get enough information. You don't want to be ignorant. I mean, I want you to be ignorant, but
Yeah.
you don't want to be ignorant. And you don't want to overthink it. So you want to have the right amount of information. And so if you're going to be swamped for the next week, you don't want to set your deadline like tomorrow because you're just going to be too busy to worry about it. If it's a big decision and you're going to be swamped next week, give yourself the weekend to do it and just like lightly think about it during the week. But if you get too deep into something too easily, then maybe you want to start a real short deadline. So it's like, okay, I'm going to really deep into this for the next hour and then I'm going to decide.
It sounds like a lot of this has to do with like personal, like mindfulness and like well-being and being aware of how your mental state is.
For sure, yeah. It takes a little self-awareness.
Yeah. So if you're having like issues with that, I would say, and I know this isn't an advice podcast or anything, but I think it would probably be important to just sit down and take a list of your strengths and your weaknesses and whatever, and just being honest with yourself. I know it's hard. I actually had to do it for a class recently where they're like, list out your strengths, your weaknesses, and like be as honest and blunt as you can. I found that just like writing with abandon and like I started typing and then I didn't stop typing for like 45 minutes. Then after that 45 minutes, I went and shaved off all the fluff where I was just kind of typing and BSing whatever. And underneath I found a lot of, oh, hey, I guess I do have these things that I like don't like about myself and things that I can work on and weaknesses that I can turn into strengths if I need to. So doing that might help you understand like where your mind is at and whether you need those short or long deadlines, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I've taken the Myers-Briggs personality test and at the end they give you like a nice little portfolio of like what they think you are.
Yeah.
And the first time I took it, I got something that I think really resonated with me when I was like looking through like the strengths and I was like, oh yeah, this is kind of where I am. This is like where I fall into like society and my relationships with people. This seems right. One of the tabs is like weaknesses. And I was like, I don't have any weaknesses. I'm perfect. I have a podcast, obviously.
Of course.
And so I clicked on it and then I was like, you know what? Like, as much as I don't want to say you're right, I do have trouble emotionally attaching, or I do have trouble admitting I'm wrong when it happens vaguely, very rarely. Like,
yeah, I think that's actually a really good point. I think taking a personality test might help you with that. Like,
or just like looking at a list of like weaknesses that may or may not apply to you, but you can look at them and be like, oh yeah, that one is me, even if I don't necessarily want to say it.
Yeah, for sure. And what'd you say yours was that you went to, the personality test?
Myers-Briggs.
Yeah.
I think like the 16 personalities is how many.
I think it's like 16 personalities. If you Google it, you'll find it. But yeah, no, that's a really helpful one. I did the exact same thing. I think my freshman year. I took it recently, and it's funny how much like I've changed since like fresh out of high school. Like my ideals and values have just completely switched around. Not entirely where it's like, oh, I went from being introverted to being extroverted, but it's like, oh, I went from being more willing to work with new people to being a little more skeptical. But I think that's part of being older, is like becoming more self-aware and becoming more skeptical of the things around you, questioning.
So talking about all of these people who aren't great at making decisions, obviously there's got to be someone who's good at making decisions, like me. No, I'm talking about you're supposed to toss it my way.
Yeah, like hold on, we can edit it in.
Okay, yeah, of course. Just say it like bolsterously and like confidently and like make sure to say my name and like how great I am.
Yeah, can I get a lead line?
Speaking of people who are like amazing at making decisions, like the best in the world, like people who are just like superior than everyone else in society, like who would be someone like that?
I can't think. Oh shit!
Yeah, it's me.
Oh wait,
do you need another lead line?
Wait, how do you say it?
Noah. Like
No.
we live together.
Wait,
My
how do you
name is
spell that?
on the door. Noah.
Nah.
No.
No. Okay, wait, hold on. One more time. One more lead line. Just the last three words.
Okay. Who would be that person?
Noah.
Yeah, there it is. I'll take it.
Ghost.
Shit. Goddamn, the T, it ruins it all.
What are you talking about? That's your name. Noah. Ghost.
That's me.
He's it's I get it, because you're like, your reaction to your last name, it's like a ghost, and you're like, Noah.
You say that as a joke. People have done that before. They're like, no, ghost. And I'm like, no.
Is that a real thing that's happened?
Yeah, it's sad. It's very pathetic.
Did I unlock some childhood trauma?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, bud.
just don't ask me like where the arc's at or something.
Yeah. So who's good at making decisions, Noah?
Who's good at making decisions? Well, I wasn't like seeing like a whole lot of lists, but I'm like, obviously, like, don't like entrepreneurs have to be good? Financial advisors, people who like live in the decision making like market as their livelihood. So like I think of like stockbrokers. It's like they gotta choose who they're going to buy and who they're not, because they're going to move in the next like hour or so. And so any time you waste making a decision is bad. Because
So I should date a stockbroker, because I will never have to worry about like choosing where to eat ever again.
Right. They'll probably just meal prep for you if you're doing a stockbroker.
I'll just be like, where do you want to eat? And they just shove like a 24-week plan of like prep food in front of me. And they're like, here you go. This is what we eat.
Next Saturday is when we go out.
Yeah. Next Saturday is when we go out. It's like, cool, where are we going? And they just shove another prepped meal. Like, we just eat this outside. That's our going out.
Nice.
Like, okay, this is the most efficient I've ever been. I don't know if I'd want to be in an efficient relationship, actually. That sounds really
I kind of like living in an inefficiency.
Yeah. I mean, I think humans kind of crave some inefficiency, right? I mean, most humans, they're just like OCD and
for sure. Like, yeah, we all like want to like waste time and like watch TV instead of like being working all the time and stuff like that, which is inefficiency, I guess.
Anyways,
but I also think like doctors would be someone who would be like an efficient decision maker, because yeah, it's life or death.
I would assume, nah.
Let me talk to you tomorrow. It's like, I have 3 days to live. That's 33% of my time.
Hold on. Wait, well, it might be 3.
Well, if I don't make a decision, it'll only be 1 day.
Yeah,
so
it might be 2. I don't know. Maybe come back. Can I reschedule you? I'm sorry. It's having like a
it's been a stressful day. Like, a lot of people have been like wanting me to answer their cancer problems, and like I just can't deal with it right now.
It's like, why did you become a radiologist? Wait, is that a radiologist? Who are cancer doctors?
Radiologists are like the X-ray doctors.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's X-ray. People who do the radiation.
I don't know if is there a cancer doctor? Like a specific doctor for cancer? There has to be, right?
Cancer.
Where are all those bald kids staying? It has to be the cancer hospital with the cancer doctors.
I don't know what a cancer doctor's called.
I don't think they have a name. But
they have to have a name. There's a pee doctor, a urologist.
There's a difference between a butt doctor and an inner butt doctor.
There's a difference between a kid doctor and a foot doctor, and it's only a couple letters.
I'm typing in cancer doctor.
I love that you're Googling it.
Cancer specialist. Oh, oncologists.
Oh, an oncologist. Wait, hold on. All right, now where do we end that bit? I'm thinking back, trying to think.
I've been on call this whole time as an oncologist. My life is hard.
Yeah, my life. People have been asking me to make decisions all day about their like cancer problems, like venting to me. It's like, why did you become an oncologist? Freaking futz.
Nice.
All right, Noah.
Bit complete.
Future Noah, cut that in. Like, just cut out all
that.
That
sounds really good.
Just right there. I think I got it perfect. Yeah, no, doctors should be good. I mean, of course, we want them to be good. I think a really good decision maker would probably be someone dealing in childcare, though. Like, they have to decide how to raise a kid, right? You don't want to mess them up.
Can't just anyone raise a kid, though?
I mean, I just...
Are you saying the barrier for entry is having sex?
I'm saying that, like, teachers and stuff. The people who are molding your children who are underpaid daily and for their entire life, they usually have to be pretty good decision makers. I don't know if you've ever like had a teacher who is really bad about making decisions, but usually you probably put less value in what they say. Because I remember having a choir teacher who everything she did, she would be like, yeah, I think like this, and I was like, well, I don't.
I was pretty confident in what I said, and I backed it up, and now you're just like,
So being a good decision maker is never a bad thing, but it is always something that I think you can work on too. It's not something where you're set in making, not necessarily bad decisions, but bad at making decisions per se. It's like any other task. The more you do it, the faster you're going to get at it, because your brain creates those pathways, and then it learns to be fast.
For sure. And these people who are good at like putting out decisions and like being efficient in their decisions, do you think they lose in quality of their decisions, or do you think they've honed it enough?
I think that if you are like, say, a 30-year-old politician, your decision-making skills are usually a little better. That being said, a lot of politicians fall off. But, you know, when you have that many eyes on you, of course, any one decision you make that's bad is going to get a lot of ripples. But
even just like for them, like decisions in what they say, whether they've been like a good person or a bad person, they can come across and just saying the right things to these answers to these crazy questions that are like meant to make them sound bad.
Yeah.
And a lot of them are like really good at just like making this decision on the spot on what to say. And then you can really tell when it doesn't show, and then they like pause or like freeze for a second. Everyone's like, oh, he froze, he's a liar or something.
Yeah, no, it's just sometimes it's just like reworking how you're going to say things, and I don't think that's a bad thing at all. Yeah. What was your root question?
Do you lose quality for efficiency when you become a good decision maker?
I think that it's one of those things that your good decisions, quote unquote, are set by morals that you learn early on in your decision making process. And then as you get older, you just kind of learn how to reroute things to become more like matching towards your morals. And so, no, I don't. I think you generally, a person who makes good decisions young is going to make good decisions later on as well. Yeah, no matter what the speed, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah, they're going to be about the same quality of decision. At the same time, even if it's not quite the same quality of the decision, it seems like the faster you make a decision, the happier you are with the results anyways.
Yeah.
Because you don't have to worry about all the other things going on behind it.
Just cut out all that stress.
Right? So we talked a little bit about how to deal with like the decision paralysis and how to help like making decisions faster. But you said that you have some ways to make like better decisions.
Oh, yeah. My scroll, everybody. It's its regular cameo on our show. You hear me with physical paper. So, yeah, I had a couple that were interesting, and we actually did cover a little bit of it. So this first one is definitely for those maximizers, and I thought this was a super interesting thing. I kind of nerded out and read most of this research paper. It's actually not that long. It's like 10 pages, but it is like single spaced and a lot of math and stuff. So if you want to check our sources, plugging that really quick because we don't usually talk about it very much. If you want to check out our sources, it is in there. And they listed out 4 steps. In the end, it's actually a bunch more steps, but it was really interesting how they got to it. So this is the simplified version, and it's called the analytic hierarchy process of decision making. So your first step is going to be to define your problem, understand what you're trying to achieve, what the goal is, and what the problem is, what's the root. But then from there, you're going to structure your decision hierarchy from bottom to top. That's saying list out the things that you want from most important to least important. And they just kind of gave some examples here, like your goals would probably be up the top, and next your objectives and your narrowed objectives, then your alternate objectives or goals that you could set that would be more likely to play out better. And so then you take all of those things and then you put them.
It seems pretty simple so far.
It is really simple. The next step's super easy. So you construct a pairwise comparison matrices, and then you compare each level to itself and those underneath it respectively.
Obviously.
Easy as that.
Yeah.
So you just do math. Matrices, that thing that you learned in like Algebra 1?
I think it's Algebra 2.
Was it Algebra 2? And then you never touched ever again?
Yeah, you did it for like a week at most.
Your teacher might have said the words, "You'll never use these, but I have to teach it."
Yeah, no, I heard that once, never again, because they've never talked about them ever again since that moment.
So yeah, what they suggested is making a matrices, and what they're going for here is making the most adequate decision and not necessarily the fastest decision. So they literally assigned mathematical values to each decision that you make. And what they did is they had like a list out, and this is kind of just for funzos, for those maximizers there. This isn't something I think necessarily you should do. But yeah, they assigned a value to things 1 through 9, 1 being this thing compared to other things is about on the even playing field, 9 being this thing far exceeds the value of this other thing. And so yeah, they basically compared those, put them into a matrices, and solved for each of their items.
So basically you had a grid.
Yeah.
And the top row was like, let's say, a coffee, and the other thing was other types of drinks.
Yeah.
And you just basically went down the whole line and said, wine compared to coffee, water compared to coffee, soda compared to coffee. And then you went down, and then you're like, wine compared to coffee, wine compared to soda, wine compared to water. And then you went soda, and then so for every single item, you just like gave it a value comparative to the other item.
Exactly. And then you solve the matrices for each of the
most
X
efficient
input, which would be the water, the wine, the whatever. And you solve that compared to all of the rest of the things, and it should give you a numerical value to
like in
your
order
decision.
what should be the highest and lowest.
So that's what they did, and then you use your priorities that you have now obtained, and you weigh them against each other, and then from there can come to your decision. That's like the simplest way to put their process. I am in a sense butchering it here because this is an audio form, and unless you just actually went and looked this up, it's not going to make a whole lot of sense.
Unless you used our sources that we take time to create for you.
What I found in my research of this and the next step is basically it all consists of essentially 4 steps, which is identifying your problem, looking for alternatives, deciding what's reasonable, and then repeating. So you do this for every single problem. Those are the 4 like basic steps I would say you should probably follow, and you can do it quick. The more you do it, the better it is. Like, oh, should I go this route or should I go that route? And so in your head you're like, okay, well this way takes this and this way takes this, and then you look for alternatives. You're like, okay, well could I ride a bike this way, but I couldn't ride a bike this way. And you're like, okay, well there's not an alternative. I can't ride a bike on this one because there's stairs. I can ride a bike on this one. It's probably gonna be faster to take the bike, so take the bike. And then from there, once you get there, you can repeat that process on the way back. Be like, that bike wasn't as fast as I wanted to go. Maybe I'll go this way. And so your decisions kind of become a little bit more snappy as you do this process more.
Weird random story. One time I was trying to go to a football game in like a big busy stadium, and coming close to the stadium, there's lots of traffic, but there's also like a few like secretive routes that you can take like through neighborhoods and stuff. And so my navigator at the time was like, oh yeah, let's just go through here. We'll miss all of this traffic. We'll literally cut right into the front of the line. I was like, okay, I'm so down. And then, so I'm driving, they have the map. And as we come to like a fork in the road, they are like,
what? Why is someone dropping all this cutlery? Dang it.
Yeah, we come to a fork in the road and I'm like, my tires. Oh no. And so I have to make a decision left or right, but I shouldn't have to make the decision because they have a map in front of them.
Yeah.
And so I was like, which way do I go? And they're like, either. And I'm like, that's not an answer. That's a left and a right. The stadium's obviously closer one way. Like, I know it doesn't give you the little blue line. That's the easiest thing to use. But like in this scenario, even if it is equal, if you have more information, I think that person should have decided.
Oh, for sure.
And I was just so stressed. I was like, okay, I can take a right, I guess, but like, what if that's the wrong one?
It sounds like you got yourself some paralysis.
I did. I think I did end up turning, but I was a little upset with the person. I was like, hey, I feel like you should have made that decision.
Yeah, in that scenario, man, you were just all tied up with you were 10-2, and you're like, all right, and I got nowhere to put my foot on the gas, and I know I'm driving, there's no squirrels, I'm not gonna hit anything, all my queue is full, and then he's like, all right, here's a decision, and you're like, oh god, I'm moving at 40 miles an hour. And then so there you go. You experienced the real world scenarios.
It was crazy.
Knowledge. So knowledge is power.
Into your minds. Yeah, decision making. Some people are better than others, but obviously there are ways to improve yourself. And I think the key is just knowing what's important and what you should like invest time in versus like what you could just kind of like chalk up to a fast decision.
Yeah.
And just being able to not care, which is so much easier said than done.
Yeah.
But I think that's something that I've learned with age is like for decision making, the way to be a little more efficient is just cut away all the fluff and just not care about the extra stuff, even if it could have a small impact on it.
I think that's good. It's like you spend time on decisions like where's my career gonna go, but you don't spend time on decisions like what's the next pair of shoes I should buy or what's the next meal I should eat.
So many decisions have so many like little externalities, things that are affecting the outside, like cost versus weight gain versus things like that. And it's like if you take into account everything, then it's just going to make every decision so much harder. So you just got to be able to just say, hey, yeah, I'm just going to do this. And it may or may not be the best, but this is what I'm going to do. And I think that's why those satisfiers are happier because they just know that they've met what they've needed to meet and they have no stress about trying to reach the top or like compare themselves to other people because it's like, oh, I just reach the bar that I wanted to reach. And so now I can just be happy and move on. That's a nice little place to end on decisions.
Do you know how people could be happier with their lives and like, a quick decision? Don't even think about it. You know what it is?
Hitting a nice little red button on their little YouTube channel.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
That's it. That's all I had. Well, and the notification bell because then you know when we're posting stuff.
And then if you do want to make a decision, because it could be a little rush, like, ooh, I just decided something.
Yeah.
You can decide to email us a nice topic or suggestion.
If you want to listen to Noah's sexy voice do it, then you guys can stay right after this.
Bye.
Look at that well-timed bye.
It was beautiful.
Hey everyone, thanks for listening to this Humorish podcast. If you want to see our sources for this episode, check the description for our citations page. As always, you can email topic submissions to humorish.tm@gmail.com and talk to us on Twitter using the hashtag NoahAsked. The podcast music was Watercolors by Vic DeVee.